What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you guys, and today I got a very, very special guest, Chris Halicke from DK Pittsburgh Sports. How are you doing, Chris? Chris has been on the show before. Me and him had a very in-depth conversation about Aaron Rodgers and the Arthur Smith scheme last year. We're gonna have another one today, but first, Chris, how are things going for you?
Going good, man. Life is going on. The team is they're doing their thing. We'll get a chance hopefully soon to be on the south side, cover some OTAs, but looking forward to continuing on and seeing what this team is going to do, what they're going to look like, and it's an interesting year. Like for real, like it's a really interesting year. I think the roster is in a better spot, but quarterback's pretty important.
It is. It is. And we are going to talk about a quarterback, specifically Drew Allar, because I want to talk mechanics. I want to get nerdy today. I want to talk about the very intricacies about Drew Allar and where things are going there. And Chris, you're not wrong. It's weird. Guys, we literally found out about 15 hours ago for sure the Steelers were going to Paris. So there's a lot of things logistically there. The schedule release is in a day. Chris Boswell's talking on Friday. First ever press conference for a kicker. That'll be fun. But let's talk about Drew Allar, because I think I've talked about it a lot. Where okay, they're reworking his footwork, they're reworking the lower half, the kind of rhythm of his game, I guess, is what I really want to talk about. Is they're reworking that. I'm not sure they're really reworking the upper half, the release, stuff like that. But I think the footwork is going to be key. And that's what we saw a lot on Saturday at rookie minicamp, where it was a lot of under center, back foot, front foot, different things. It was shotgun. They did pistol. They did it all. It's Mike McCarthy's QB school. So talk to me about kind of what you noticed, what they're doing with Drew Allar, and how they're kind of trying to change his footwork and the lower body mechanics that he.
Well, the first thing is they just need to get him under control. That was probably one of the most important things, and one of the things that kind of jumped out when it came to the inconsistencies in his tape at Penn State was just even sometimes when he wasn't under pressure, when it came to anytime he had to shuffle, anytime he got out of rhythm in any kind of way, the footwork usually broke down. That will come with feel, and he hasn't necessarily been playing quarterback all that long, as opposed to some of these other guys who have come through. So there's still questions about will he ever get a true feel for the position. I think that will also help in, or at least make an impact one way or the other, if his footwork will ever really get refined. But for rhythm passing and for all that stuff, I think that stuff can get cleaned up. And I think at that point, it's just getting him as under control as possible. Because it happened time and time again in college where just the footwork, the lower body and the upper body got completely disjointed. And it's something that had to be fixed. And what really it looked like at rookie minicamp at times was it's almost like they're teaching him to play quarterback for the first time. And that's not an insult to him or anything like that. That's just like they are breaking him down to build him back up.
I think that's really ground up. He said from the ground up, everything's happening. So from his base, which is your feet, everything for a quarterback starts at their feet. Now, there's a lot of different things we can go through up the kinetic chain, but ask any quarterback guru, ask any former quarterback, what they say is it starts with your feet. So his feet have to be on time. He has to be in rhythm. If you're playing in a West Coast offense, I don't care if it's Bill Walsh's West Coast offense, Mike McCarthy's, Sean McVay's, I don't care what iteration of the West Coast offense you're running. You have to be on time and in rhythm, because those throws, the route trees, are so much kind of over the middle of the field, or these quick bursts off to the sideline. If you aren't on time, that's late. That's pick six territory. That's why you got to be on time. And you mentioned it. Drew Allar, when he was at Penn State, sometimes it's just such a frantic lower half. Like the footwork would just be frantic. He wouldn't kind of stick through the base. Like stick those cleats in the ground and drive and rotate, right? That's the big thing, because when you stick it in the ground and you get a solid base, that allows you to go up through your lower half, through your hips, and rotate through, and that's how you can throw. It's always funny when you watch Drew Allar because I think he throws off platform really well. I think he actually
Does.
has a lot of really good traits with the upper half. I think his release, he's got really long arms. His release for where it is, very snappy. It's quick. It's not elongated. He actually, it looks like he reworked it a little bit to make it even quicker over the draft process with John Beck. I think that was a good thing. And, I don't really think the Steelers are going to touch his upper body mechanics. I think those are fine. But it's the footwork. And everything's got to be 1-2 in rhythm if it's a two-step drop. You got to make sure that you're keeping an even base. You don't want to get too wide because that's how you sail passes. And, it was kind of funny. Drew Allar said in his presser with us, Chris, that he is hoping to kind of fix that over months, but also they told him not even to worry about accuracy. Like they're not caring about where that football is going right now because the footwork, the steps, they're long, they're exaggerated. I posted a few clips that for some reason fried everyone's brains, and everyone decided to make a big thing about Drew Allar on day one of rookie minicamp. But it's a project from the starting ground because if the footwork isn't there, it's really hard, honestly, to be a high level quarterback.
It is. Now, not every quarterback's footwork has to be exactly like everybody else, like every other quarterback's footwork. Like I would even still say Aaron Rodgers' footwork, for as good as it is, like now, it's still not like a lot of other guys' footwork. Now, when he gets to when he's throwing on a platform, you can see how good his footwork is. But in terms of his drop doesn't look like a whole bunch of other guys. Now, I'm not saying that Allar's drop or whatever it is has to be exactly like everybody else's. I think it might need to get a little basic now, just to again to kind of build him back from the ground up. But he might be a guy whose footwork never ends up looking the most pristine or something that you'll put on tape to be like look like that guy. And one of the reasons why I think is you just said it. He throws off platform really well. He can. I mean, and when you have the arm that he does, you can get away with throwing off platform. The only problem is how often are you going to miss throws because of it? You should try to always throw on platform when possible. Because if you're on platform, you have a much better chance of making the type of throw you need to make. If you're trying to lay it over a defender, if whatever type of throw it is, but then you have a better chance of being accurate too. So, they got to build them from the ground up, and it's something that I think I like. Going into this class, like if you're going to take a swing on a guy, this is the kind of guy I would want them to take a swing on. And I understand like some people might be like, well, the Steelers have never developed a quarterback before. Well, this is an entirely different era. This is not Mike Tomlin. This is not Bill Cowher. This is not a defensive-minded coach going in. This is Mike McCarthy, who has worked with quarterbacks established like Joe Montana and Brett Favre, but then also developed guys like Aaron Rodgers. He's worked with a number of quarterbacks, and if there's a time to try to draft and develop one, this is the time to do it. And so the tools are there. So see if you can build him from the ground up, fix the footwork, and then, man, maybe he becomes something.
Maybe. I mean, they need to have, and I want people to have patience with him. Listen, I've been talking with QB trainers and stuff so much the past week just to try and kind of educate myself. I've kind of, I can watch the clinics. I mean, I watched Mike McCarthy's clinic from 20 years ago where Aaron Rodgers was doing the same drills we both saw Drew Allar doing on Saturday. It's Mike McCarthy's QB school. He is a guy that has a tried and true way. He believes it. McCarthy is kind of interesting in that I think there's a lot of coaches that honestly are a little bit more hands-off on their quarterback's mechanics and things like that. A lot of them are more focused on like pre-snap reads, post-snap reads, and McCarthy certainly is going to be on that. But the interesting thing about I think where Mike McCarthy comes in is that he kind of starts from the fundamentals. He's very specific about like drops, timing on drops, the footwork to get to those drops. I do think that makes him, honestly, from what I've talked to around the league with people, that kind of makes him a little bit of an outlier just with how specific he is. That's an old school thing from him. He is so detailed down to the hitch that it is going to be all drilled. And so Drew Allar's not the only one doing this, by the way. Mike McCarthy said he put Will Howard and Mason Rudolph through these drills as well at OTAs, start of OTAs, so like 4 weeks ago now. So this is not just Drew Allar, but they are really starting it with him. And so I think the Steelers are really going to be making sure that Drew Allar is going step by step, slow by kind of every step has to be exaggerated. Every drop has to be exaggerated. Everything has to be by the numbers. You don't want everything to kind of look like it's going to be on game day right now because you need to get this guy built from the ground up. And one thing, when talking with people, and maybe you probably heard this too, Chris, is when you talk about quarterbacks, it's about the kinetic chain, and the kinetic chain starts with your feet. That's why footwork is such an important thing. It's not just feet, as we talked about, the off-platform stuff. You can generate velocity with his arm. He's got a phenomenal arm. That's no question. But the lower half has to be in sync if you want everything to work. That's why his accuracy has been spotty over his time at Penn State. That was a big thing. And so he needs to kind of also have a QB trainer they trust that can enact some of these things as well. But all of this works. And it's very specific stuff. And Mike McCarthy is going to drill it down to a detail throughout the summer and into the season.
Well, I mean, footwork is important in almost any position in any sport. I mean, if you have good footwork and just about, I mean, shoot, when we talk about, not trying to change the subject or anything, but when we talk about Maxi Honachor and we think about how raw of a prospect he is in some ways, man, he's not as raw as Broderick Jones was coming out of college, even though he's only played the game since 2021, just because his footwork is already pretty advanced, especially for a guy who's only played the game for 5 years. And so if you have your footwork down, it's a great base to build from. Now with Drew Allar, they're trying to do the exact opposite. Like almost everything else from the waist up looks pretty good. Like I said, the arm's great. He can make some, I mean, the throws that he made against Oregon, both in 24 and in 25, some of those throws were stupid. And I mean that in like the highest compliment possible. I mean, having a defender pulling on him and he's still able to sling it downfield 20 plus yards and put it between two defenders and put it right on the money. And have another time where he slips and he just literally chucks it and it's across his body and right on the money, 20 plus yards downfield. Like that's special stuff. But the special throws like that only happen, a handful of times in a game. What about the rest of the time when you have to be on time, when you have to be able to, hey, backs, your back foot hits, ball's got to come out, or you got to get to your next read, whatever it is. Okay, first read's not there, get to your second read, process it fast. That's something that he's going to have to work on. Now, he can process. I know there's a lot of questions about his processing speed, and I think some of those concerns are valid. But at the same time, I also have seen times where he's processed, and I'm talking full field stuff. Having, one concept on one side of the field, seeing, hey, it's not there, and then being able to reset the feet, go to the other side, and, oh, that's open, and throw it. That's good stuff. When it has happened, it's just been a little too few and far between. So get that process. But if your footwork is there and it's one less thing you have to worry about, and you're putting yourself in position to, hey, by the time my back foot hits, I'm either ripping it or I'm moving on to my next read. There's nothing that's going to keep you lagging behind and you're losing precious milliseconds while NFL edge rushers and defensive tackles are trying to, put you through the ground.
Right. And I think that's the thing that always was frustrating about Penn State tape is there was anticipation. There was, the backside dig, he hit it, but then he doesn't do it consistently. And it's because he is kind of frantic with the footwork, the lower half. The lower half's not in sync. I will say for him, even coming to Mike McCarthy's scheme, there are a lot of under center stuff. He talked about how they did pistol in Andy Kotelnicki's scheme, but it's still not the same. There's a lot of different footwork fundamentals. He's basically coming from a scheme that was exclusively shotgun. And is going to have to learn a whole new way to work under center, things like that. It's kind of like learning a new language in some ways, especially because of just how particular Mike McCarthy is about it. Drew Allar, I mean, listen, we've talked to Drew Allar 2 or 3 times. I've talked to him went up to Penn State Pro Day, talked to him. I talked to him at the Combine. I've talked with Drew Allar, I don't know, probably about 6 times now. Really smart kid that understands what he's getting into. We're talking about a guy that went into pre-draft meetings saying, my footwork's an issue. I need to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that obviously that they've focused on footwork over the years, but something hasn't hit there. And so now you get a new set of eyes. The Steelers come in, Mike McCarthy comes in, Tom Arth comes in. You might even get some help there from Frank Cingetti Jr., who's been around the block for a while. I mean, he is getting help from all these people. He brought in John Beck during the draft process, like all these new faces that he has kind of made himself uncomfortable with. I think, he's run to the criticism, which is a good thing for him. Now, he's got a lot of work to do. This, to me, is a year-long, multi-year-long project to just kind of do this from the ground up. It's not easy. He's going to have to rework his muscle memory. He's going to have to rework the habits. And really, I think the worry would be if put him in a game, does he just fall back into bad habits? You want to rewire that and undo it. So that's a little bit of a worry there. And so that's the one thing I think, let's go back to Max Ihanachour. The one thing that's different about Ihanachour and Allar, they're both green players, but Ihanachour doesn't have bad habits. You don't have to unlearn it. You just have to teach him new things. When it comes to Allar, you've got to kind of unwind that spool and then build it back up, which is why it's a little bit different. And it's like, the kind of learning the playbook, the footwork, all of this, it's new. That's why, I think they came in to rookie minicamp and said, we're not going to have another quarterback here. It's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
Drew Allar. And Drew Allar, throughout 2 days of minicamp, got probably over 200 reps just through that. And that's still minuscule in what he's going to need to unwind all the stuff he's learned, but it's a start for it. So if this pick's going to work out, we're starting from a very small place, and it's just going to build to a crescendo, basically.
No, I agree with that, and there's no rush, regardless of whether Aaron Rodgers returns or not. And I think even with all the where in the world is Carmen Sandiego crap that's going on with Rodgers, whether he's there or not, the Steelers have other options. They can start Mason Rudolph if they wanted to. They can start Will Howard if they wanted to. I don't know if they would, but they could. I don't think you want to go into a situation where Drew Allar is going to be starting games. Now, that being said, I'm never going to put a ceiling on a guy. I'm never going to put a timeline on a guy just because you never know if a guy is determined to get something done and to fix something. And if he might work diligently over the gap between the end of OTAs and training camp and come into training camp. And I mean, shoot, McCarthy noticed a difference in his footwork between the Combine and the Penn State Pro Day. Like, I'm not saying Allar's going to, by the time the Steelers report to St. Vincent College and Latrobe that Allar's footwork, he's fixed. I'm not saying that's going to happen at all. I wouldn't anticipate that happening. But we also didn't anticipate Russell Wilson going to Seattle and winning the quarterback job. We didn't anticipate Dak Prescott, granted, being thrust in by injuries, but starting and then not allowing Tony Romo or anybody else to get the starting job back because of the way he played. It has happened. They're outliers. They're not the normal case. If you are looking at a realistic case for Drew Allar, it is most likely going to be he's going to sit for a year. He'll probably be last year's Will Howard. He'll be the QB3. He won't get a helmet. The only time he'll get a helmet is if the starter is out via injury, and then he'll get moved into a backup role. But that'll be his role, and most likely will be his role. It's not a bad role to be in. There's plenty of development that can happen in that. And there are plenty of quarterbacks that have sat for a year, 2 years. Shoot, if Patrick Mahomes can do it, Drew Allar can do it too. Pat Mahomes needed a year. Even though he was taken 10th overall, he needed a year. He sat for a year, he developed, and then he became Patrick Mahomes. So I'm not saying Allar's going to become Patrick Mahomes, or he's going to be Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott or anything like that, but you need to do your due diligence from the Steelers' perspective and make sure that everything that you're doing, footwork-wise, resetting that, almost like you're rebooting a piece of software or installing a new piece of software. That's what this is going to be, because, again, the tools they've got themselves a guy who's, you can't teach him to be 6'5". You can't teach him to have a howitzer for an arm. The things that need to be fixed can be fixed via coaching. So try that, see what happens.
Yeah, they can be. It is much harder to take a guy with bad habits and teach him, which Aller is. So he's in the tougher bucket. Like Mahomes came in and I think was a guy that was more like an Ihana type, where it was like, okay,
Oh
raw.
yeah.
But I think Josh Allen is a lot more like Aller in the fact that he had a lot of bad habits you had to unteach. And Josh Allen was pretty bad his first 2 years, if you remember. Right? He played, but
Mm-hmm.
he was not very good. And then third
Right.
year it finally started to click, and obviously now he is what he is. But look, even guys like Sam Darnold, I mean, he was awful in New York, and then boom, he clicks. Like, it takes years sometimes. It takes
It
time
can.
for these guys to go. And sure, there's other guys on the other side of this, guys like Christian Hackenberg and Paxton Lynch and all these guys that have busted out. Drew Allar could go to either side of this, or he could end up in the middle, for goodness sakes. Who knows? But, that's kind of, they took an upside swing here. This is an upside dart. And the footwork is the start of this. This is exactly how you have to start it, because you got to be in rhythm. You got to be on time. And if he's in rhythm and on time, you hope it helps the mental side of his game, where he's able to just rip it with confidence and is able to go through his reads, because there are flashes there. And you still have to hone that part of his game. But he's a solid athlete for the position. He's not going to be a guy that you necessarily run read option with, but he can certainly move off platform, extend plays. He's a big kid, so he can shake
Penn
off.
State had him run between the tackles every now and then.
Right. This guy, I know he's coming off, the broken leg, so we'll see where that comes into play as well. But he looks good moving around practice. So we'll kind of see. I think that's the big thing here. In terms of his footwork, it's literally going to be, how do you gain depth? Which foot do you want to use to gain depth? How are we going to load the weight transfer? All these things. Like, it's down to the basics. They are stripping it down to the studs. So I kind of wanted just to discuss that with you, Chris, because I think people maybe don't fully understand just what they're doing with him, because I think they are doing this top down, and you're right. It is like rebooting a computer. It's kind of like erasing all the memories. There's no files. It's a blank thing that you're getting, and you're like, all right, blank slate. We're going to reshape you, kind of do different things that we like, and then we're going to see where this goes. And I think they're going to have a lot of patience with Drew Allar, just because he is a guy that's going to require it.
Yeah, he does, and definitely. I mean, we've hit on this a couple of times already, but yeah, like the West Coast offense requires quarterbacks to have their footwork set, like pristine. Like you again, it's all about timing. It's all about what, by the time your back foot hits, you've got to be ready to fire and hit your first read. If it's not there, then you have to be able to process. And obviously there are a number of different types of concepts. And in today's NFL, even with the different iterations of the West Coast offense, there are still so many different, nothing's like pure old school Bill Walsh. I mean, complete West Coast anymore. Everybody has their own iteration of it. You see some air raid stuff, thrown in there every now and then, but either way, with Allar in particular, yes, it is all about just completely tearing him down, setting the footwork, making sure the footwork is Penn State didn't do him any favors in that regard. Not only with the coaching, but the offensive scheme wasn't good. The word I used to describe it whenever I was doing my film breakdown on it was buffoonery. It's a terrible offense. As much as some people might want to bang their head against the wall watching Allar and his footwork every now and then, the actual offense made me want to do that. It was a pain, and I would have felt bad for almost any player who had to play in that offense. It was bad. It was terrible,
truly awful.
So Allar did not get any favors in college when it came to that, and the fact that he is as battle tested as he is over starting for 3 years gives me a lot more hope for him than it is for a guy coming out of Ohio State or Alabama, where they weren't battle tested in terms of having to process the game. Their first read was usually open, and that's usually the big case with somebody like Will Howard. his first read was almost always open. And even if it wasn't, he had plenty of time to find his second read or find his third read. He's either getting, look at the receivers and where they've been drafted that he's thrown to. Cornell Tate was just taken 4th overall. And he was like their number 3 receiver when he won the national championship. Come on.
Yeah, Luka was the first round pick. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith is going to be a very high pick. Probably could be the first overall pick next year, depending on what happens. So yeah, there's the difference there, and he was not in a good spot there with the offense of Penn State. So that has to be taken into consideration. But we'll kind of see, man. It's going to be a project. It's going to be one to watch. I think
it is a project,
but this is a ground up rebuild for a guy, and so we'll kind of see where all of that goes. I'm just really interested to see how it plays out with a guy like Mike McCarthy, because I think that is kind of the intriguing thing, is having an offensive coach. Me and Chris have texted each other either about, oh, well, Allar's frustrating like this, or you texted me about 5 times over like 2 days just about how much you hated the offense after they selected Allar.
I hate that offense.
It was bad.
I watched 4 games. I watched 4 games. One game I watched in particular was the UCLA game, and I felt bad for him because he tried so hard to help them win that game. And number one, the defense just let them down. And special teams too, because before the offense even took the field, they were down 10-0. That's already so bad. The defense sucked. They couldn't stop UCLA from scoring. And then they were running the same freaking play. They ran it like the same play like 8 times in that game. And it never worked. That's the other thing. This is not like the Bills spamming the same run play against the Steelers because they were tearing them up. This is the exact opposite. This is like, well, maybe it'll work this time. Maybe it'll work this time. It never worked. It was first off, it was a terrible play. And it was one where you have 2 receivers from one side. One of them's running and just doing a stop in the middle of the field. The other one's running this weird corner route. And the receiver running the corner route never got the separation to get open. And it took forever to get open. It took forever to play out. It was a terrible play. It was never open. They kept trying it. It was a terrible offense. And then they just do things to do things. There's no purpose to any of the motion, to any of the shifts. Like, it was a terrible offense. Well, like, I hated Ole Miss's offense, and that was one of the reasons why I had questions about Jackson Dart coming out of college. And I would have rather like watched 3 seasons of that Ole Miss offense as opposed to 1 game of that Penn State offense.
I will say this: the craziest play that still comes to mind is they were, what was it, 3rd and goal? It was against Northwestern. They're 3rd and goal from the 9, and they called 4 verts. And Allar doesn't make a good decision. It's a pick the other way, but dude, what are you gonna do? That you don't call 4 verts at the 9. Like, you could do it from the high red. Like, you could do it from the high red at like the 20, but you're not doing it. That's still not
my favorite call, even anywhere in the red zone. Really,
it's much better out, midfield and kind of
strike zone,
right? And so it's much better there. But like, come on, what was that? What are you doing? It's like some Matt Canada stuff, like legitimately. Like, there's like a lot of.
I don't even know if Matt Canada's that bad.
Honestly, dude, it was really bad. It was really, really bad to watch, and so the offensive infrastructure there was not good. And you kind of talked about McCarthy evolving a little bit. One guy I talked to in Dallas kind of called it the Texas Coast offense because there's a lot more RPO action. But again, even with RPOs, like, okay, you got to be in a rhythm. The footwork has to be right there because you want to set the guy up for ideal yak. So you got to make sure you put it out in front of him, whatever it might be. The footwork's very key. And that he did obviously run a lot of RPOs in Kotelnicki's offense, but
that he did.
We will see kind of how that goes. But Chris, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate that. This was a really good in-depth convo about Allar, where they're going, and just kind of how we have to watch this play out. Let them know where they can follow you, read your stuff, watch you, all that great stuff.
Yeah, all my work is on DK Pittsburgh Sports on our app, on our site, and it's just, our app is free. The content's free. You can subscribe if you want to. You get access to like comments, to be able to make comments, to do like live Q&A with all the staff, including DK himself. And then We also have our YouTube channel, our Steelers YouTube channel, where we do our daily podcasts, our daily shots of Steelers, double shots of Steelers. We do live shots on there all the time. So man, we have all kinds of content coming out. I'm excited to be continuing on. I'm still going through a 10-player draft class in terms of film review. So I got 2 players left that I'm working on. Excited to keep doing that, but also OTAs are coming up. And then before we know it, training camp's going to be here, man. I'm excited for it, man. It's a good time. And you can find me on social media. Usually, I think it's everywhere. I'm just at Chris Halicke. So that's where you can find me.
Make sure to check out this stuff. Chris does fantastic work. For me, to follow me, Farabaugh FB. Check out the stuff, penlive.com/Steelers. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe on this YouTube channel. We got plenty of stuff. Ramping up daily podcast. I got, I'm going to have interviews and different things like that coming. So make sure to check all of that out, folks. And thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow, and I guess we will have schedule reaction. That'll be fun. So make sure to tune in for that, and thanks for watching.